So Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans will be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. It should be a very interesting game. And the first time that the Titans played the Chiefs, Derrick Henry had a monster game. He had 188 yards. 68 of those yards actually came on one play. And so let's just jump into that play and see what went wrong for Kansas City. So I've actually broken down this play before, but what's going to happen is that it's going to be a lot of blocks to the right side of the screen. And the guy you're going to want to take a look at is going to be Chris Jones right over there. Because after the ball is snapped, if you notice, not really too much going on right there. There's not a lot of space that Henry can run through. But there is one interesting thing, and it's Chris Jones. Notice how far to the left side of the screen he still is. He hasn't gotten far over enough. So now for Derrick Henry, he can simply just run in between the offensive line and where Chris Jones is because he didn't do a good enough job of containing Henry on that play. So now at this point, all he has to do is beat one defensive back. That's all he has to do here. And Derrick Henry, more often than not, trying to get around a defensive back in open space, it's going to work out well for Derrick Henry. Now, I hear a lot of people saying you can't go high on Derrick Henry because then he can just stiff arm you out of the way. He's too big for that. But what's interesting about Derrick Henry is that you can't really go low against him either. Because, watch, that's what this defensive back is going to do, but Henry is easily able to sidestep him and get all the way into the end zone for a touchdown just like that, just making one slight move. His footwork and his speed is so underrated. That's a huge part of what makes him so talented. And you can't really make a tackle like that with a guy who can, sidestep so quickly. It's kind of like very similar to, there's some guys who like hurdle over someone, and so they say you can't go low because then they'll hurdle over you, and you can't go high because then they'll run over you. Well, Henry kind of does that, but in a different way, where, he can stiff arm you if you stay high and get you out of the way that way. And if you go low, he can just sidestep you. So basically, there's no winning if you're a defensive back going up against Henry. And for Kansas City, they should just try to not put themselves in that position to begin with. And so how do you do that? Well, there's several situations. One thing you can do is what Baltimore did. Like on this play, they have 9 Ravens who are on the screen right here. So they are making a conscious effort to try to stop the run. The only 2 players you don't see on the screen are the 2 that are lined up for receiver because obviously you can't leave receivers completely uncovered. But other than that, they're definitely trying to stop the run right here. And so for Tennessee, they're going to just have a simple concept, really. They're going to have their right tackle and also tight end on the left side of the screen go out to block those 2 Baltimore Ravens right there. And then they're simply going to pull a tight end who's on the right side of the screen over to the left side of the screen. He will then block that Baltimore player. Henry runs in between them. You can gain some yards this way. Relatively simple concept. It's actually not going to be executed too well, though. Their tight end doesn't actually do a great job of getting over and being in position to make a block. So now Henry is in trouble. There's definitely someone who's about to make a tackle on Henry, but the problem is, it's a lot easier to get in position to tackle Henry than it is to actually tackle him. Watch how he kind of just bounces off him. And now at this point, okay, most guys would just go down here, but Henry has already managed to stay on his feet. And for a defensive back, you're kind of just saying, okay, pretty much any contact here should be enough to bring Henry down. That's the way most big guys are. But Henry is so quick and has such great footwork for a big guy. Watch how he's then able to sidestep around, and again, it's another huge gain. That's what Henry can do, is you make a small mistake, you miss a tackle, or you just make a mental mistake, and he can turn that 5-yard gain into a 50-yard gain just like that because he makes the safeties miss. It's so difficult for a safety to make an open field tackle against Henry. And honestly, you have to just make sure that you don't let yourself get in that position as much as possible. Even though Kansas City actually has some decent safeties, it's just a situation you want to avoid at all costs. But okay, you know what? If I'm being totally honest, I'm getting a little bit tired of talking about Derrick Henry. Yes, Derrick Henry is having one of the all-time playoff runs that we've seen out of a halfback. He's has a chance to, at least, if he can, will his team to one more victory. But it's not just Derrick Henry. It's also the offensive line. The offensive line has done a tremendous job of blocking for Henry, and this play is a great example of that. So what Tennessee is doing here is, again, Baltimore has a lot of players who are focused on the run right here. In Tennessee, they just have a bunch of one-on-one matchups. Just everyone block your guy, and let's hope we can, find a hole. And that's where Henry is going to look. It's going to be in between his left tackle and his left guard right here. And for good reason. Look at how big of a gap they're going to create for him right here. This might not look like it's that much, but this is huge because if you look at both of the Baltimore players, they're currently on the opposite side of the Tennessee Titans who are in their way, especially Taylor Lewan right there. He's on the right side of the screen. He's their left tackle. That's a tremendous run block to completely get the Baltimore player not just out of the way, but also further up to the right side of the screen than he is, so that way Henry can easily run in between them. Henry's able to run, he does get tackled, but like that's what you want is those 6, 7 yard gains. Every run goes for that amount of yards, and it's kind of actually very similar to the Baltimore Ravens in a sense, where it's like even a good play, you still give up 4 yards. So how do you stop them 3 times in a row when you feel good about a 4 yard gain, but 3, 4 yard gains and they have the first down? It just makes things so difficult, and there's not really anything you can do. Like on this play, it's kind of similar. They're going to have their guards and their center all have one-on-one matchups. Their center will be moving up to block the linebacker. And after the ball is snapped, he's in good position to block this linebacker. And so, a linebacker is going to get a little bit creative here. That's Josh Bynes, and watch how he's going to try to get around the center. He moves to the other side, which there's some logic behind, but now there's just a huge gap in between both the guards. He basically just took himself out of the play because Henry is so quick that Henry is able to run straight through the gap and, gain, again, a solid gain. Nothing spectacular, but you don't need these runs to be spectacular every play. These 5 to 7 yard runs are totally fine. That's what Tennessee likes to have, especially when you're going up against a guy like Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the ball. If you can kind of limit the time he touches the ball, well, that's how you can have success. If you only give him 9 drives, well, that's how you can beat him because he might throw one interception, there might be a fumble, and then even if they score, then uh, 4 touchdowns, 3 field goals, something like that, maybe 4 touchdowns, 2 field goals, and a punt. Like, honestly, I think if you're Tennessee, you're saying, like, hey, let's keep them under 35. Honestly, I think that's partially the mindset with how good the Chiefs offense is. And I do think that when you have a running team going up against a passing heavy team, that, there's more mistakes that can be made with a passing heavy team than a rush heavy team. So the less drives you get, probably the better. So I think less drives benefit Tennessee. And so killing a lot of clock by running the ball absolutely helps them. And one more interesting thing I think about this game is that it's going to be shown on a play like this, actually. It's going to be a right guard, a right tackle, and a wide receiver, actually, are going to go out to block those 3 Kansas City players right there. And take a look at what happens right when this ball is snapped. So one thing you'll notice is that there is a huge hole right there that Derrick Henry can run through. So you might be thinking, okay, Henry will easily be able to get up, run basically until the safeties. There's actually 2 safeties back, which I'd be surprised if we see 2 safeties back in this upcoming game at all. I think they're going to have one safety pretty much the whole game. This is going to be a cover 1, cover 3 game because you don't want to have that extra safety deep. But I think one interesting thing is what's going on right there. Not just the fact that there's a block, but who's getting blocked right now? That's Daniel Sorensen. He's able to run over and help make this tackle. Henry still gets 7 yards because there was a big gap. What I find very interesting about that, if you're not sure who Daniel Sorensen is, he's a defensive back. He's a safety. And that's actually, I think, a very unique thing about this Chiefs team is they like to use a lot of defensive backs. They are very defensive back heavy, and you might think that that's a big negative, and in some ways it is going up against Derrick Henry because the fact that they have a lot of defensive backs means that they won't be able to sort of overpower Henry. But at the same time, nobody overpowers Henry. So if you can get some of these guys who can more easily slip blocks and more easily get around to just be in position to make Henry, they might not make as many tackles, but at least if you can get in position like Sorensen was able to do there, if you have an extra safety in the box, there is definitely some benefits to be made there. So you could see Sorensen and Matthew actually being a huge key to stopping Henry, which might not be what a lot of people are expecting. A lot of people might think, no, it's going to be the linebackers trying to stop Henry. And that will be the case as well. But I do think that there is an interesting situation going on with, do you have your safeties who are good tackling safeties be the guys who you're trying to have tackle Henry? I think it's interesting. I definitely think that, again, people are counting Tennessee out. It seems like every game people count Tennessee out. Once again, I will not be doing that. I haven't counted them out any game this playoffs. I predicted them to beat the Patriots. I did think they'd lose to the Ravens, but I thought it would be close. And then this game, I kind of, as of right now, I'm leaning towards the same thing. I think the Chiefs will eventually win this game, but I'm not counting Tennessee out. And I mean, Tennessee, they beat Kansas City earlier this season. I expect another nail biter because the last time these two teams played each other, it was. And I mean, I think they're actually probably both better teams now. They both kind of come into their own later in the season. And so, with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line, it should be quite the game.